Hey guys, welcome back to Better Body Radio. And today we are going to be kicking on with part 2 of our interview with Matt Peacock, the Muscle Mindset Coach. Now, if you guys joined us for part 1, you know that it was a fantastic episode with lots of insights dropped by Matt throughout the episode. And I actually told you guys a bit of a fib, but I kind of said that we were moving on to like the last 2 questions and the quick fire round. And upon listening back, I realized that we actually rattled through the first 4 questions of the podcast within the first half hour. So today's episode is a little bit longer. It's about an hour long, and we kind of get into this whole juggernaut of a topic that Matt is kind of almost starting to make trend a little bit on social media amongst the coaching circle and his clients. This idea of winning the first battle, this idea of making the first actions in your day count and using that as a way of kind of setting a routine for success, not only from your day, but from week to week and month to month with whatever it is you're trying to be successful in. So that was very fun to get into all of that. We then obviously dive into the quick fire round, which was anything but, which is why I guess the podcast dragged on a little bit longer. But I promise you guys, it's super fun, interesting listen. You're going to enjoy today's episode. So without further ado, here we go with part 2.
Mate, we're like 5 weeks into mentoring, and he's texting me off the back of every call being like, mate, this is the best business decision I've ever made, because making him use his own brain to come up with his own ideas, to come up with his own ethos. And I think that is the absolute key to it all for me for mentoring.
Definitely. I think the thing is that anyone who's ever like followed you for any length of time on Instagram, I think for it would have been for me, it would probably been about 8 months. I've maybe been, I wouldn't be able to put a date on it, but you know, I certainly see your stuff, and we spoke off earlier how much my wife and I were like, his branding is so on point. But the thing I actually pick up on even more is like, this is just authentic. Like, this is the words coming directly out of this guy's mouth. You can tell that this is not any, like, you know, the way they almost, we've been through this, we've thought, oh, well, maybe we need to learn how to copyright, we need to learn how to speak a certain jargon. And you know what, the more that we kind of got into that stuff, we were just kind of like, this doesn't feel like me. Like, I just want to speak.
Yeah.
I would speak to Matt or Mal and it's funny, the fitness industry is full of, here's how to write sales copy so that you can really convince your client. Honestly, when I ask my clients what they value me for, they're like, you're a good guy, and you know, you really care about me and what I'm going to for my results. And it's just like, that's what they care about. And so I think it's so interesting that anyone who's ever seen your stuff, like, I can believe that you would give a really good mentoring service, because I think just that authenticity shows through, like you say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you're going to be authentic on social media, then that's how you're going to be with your clients. That's how you're going to be with mentoring. And so there's a message for everyone. Authenticity wins in the long run.
For sure. I think mate, like, thank you first and foremost for that compliment, because it genuinely means a lot. And I think that's something that, without sounding like an egotistical prick, it's just honestly an honest reflection on my life of late. I've been hearing that a lot from people, and I'm very grateful for every single person that ever says it to me. And I make a point of thanking people for it. But the reason I think people think that is I write any posts or communication of any description the way that I speak.
Yeah.
And it's that straightforward. Like, I'm a little bit of a gobshite. I'm a bit outspoken, but ultimately, like, it's all said with integrity, and I actually believe what I'm saying, and I won't post anything that I don't feel like I understand fully. And I feel like there's a big problem with that in the industry. It's like, I've read a book, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paraphrase very loosely what someone else has written in a book without any form of credit, and I'm just going to ping it out as my own knowledge. And I think that kind of goes back to that certification sluts thing, where people go on a weekend course and now they're like PhD. I'm like, no, mate, like, you don't know it. Like, you know it, but you don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, that integrity is a really, really important part for all coaches. I think that's just something, again, that I've just repeatedly learned from Luke Lehman. And he's another one that, when you were talking about the client journey,
yeah,
he hammered into me early doors in my career, is that first phase. I don't know what you called yours, that the initial phase that clients go through.
Preparation phase.
Okay, so let's see, that prep phase, that for Luke and now for me, and I'm always going to credit him for it, is it's about giving the client what they want, but also giving them what they need. Yeah. And sometimes they're at odds. And sometimes you need to give them a little bit of what they need before they get what they want, which ruffles a few feathers, but I'm going somewhere with this, don't worry. If you are authentic in every communication up to that point, they have no reason not to trust you. Whereas if you've been through some slimy how to sell people shit course and copyright, smoke and mirrors copywriting, say all these magic words and charm money out of people's wallets. Like, great. And then what when you've got their money? Because they're going to realize that this was all smoke and mirrors, and that you're completely and utterly inauthentic. And then what? People leave is what happens. People leave, and what people do when people leave, people talk. Which is why my focus with all coach mentoring will be integrity, integrity, integrity. Understand who you are, what you oppose, what you stand for, and how you're going to tell people that.
Brilliant. Nothing to add to that whatsoever, because I think that's just take that away and apply that. Just do it. Just take it away and do it. So that brings us nicely to the last question before we get into my favorite part of the podcast, which is the quick fire round, which is always an absolute joy, and everyone always is trembling a little bit, but I actually reckon you'll be quite excited. I reckon.
Yeah, I really, one thing that Sarah would tell you is that I seem to not have social awkwardness. Like, I don't feel that level of awkwardness that other people have in like that kind of situation. I kind of thrive in that environment because I just like, I don't feel any shame. So I'm all good. Looking forward to it.
Because you know what it is, people see the prepared questions and they're kind of like, oh, you know, like, yeah, it's in my lane. And as soon as you start chucking out like, what's your ex? It's like, oh God, that's a tough question. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Well, last but not least, you talk about it. I think this is such a cool way to finish this because it's something that you're literally hammering home so much at the moment, is the importance of winning the first battle, even so much so that you made it a sticker, and winning that first battle every day. In your experience, how important is it to create these types of rituals, I think it's a good way to call it, in order to maximize your productivity every single day?
So this has become something of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, and like every podcast I'm on at the moment, it's like, tell me more. And I'm more than happy to talk about it. And I think I want to start by saying that when something becomes a thing, in inverted commas, in the industry, anything that happens to, it's usually when it wasn't ever intended to be a thing.
Yeah.
When you try to manufacture a thing, I know there's a lot of use of the word thing here, but hopefully people are following. When you try to manufacture a thing, it doesn't become a thing. But when you're just doing your thing, again, being authentic and having some integrity, I just threw that out, and it's in a client training. It's actually part of a client training, and one of the clients shared on social media, and then it's become a thing. So when the first battle is effectively part of a client training called the High Performance Morning Upgrade, which all my clients work through week one. And the purpose of that training is, I mean, it should hopefully does what it says in the tin, High Performance Morning Upgrade. It helps them start the day right, because in my opinion, that's kind of where it all begins. And we can split hairs on that all day long. But when the first battle is the ideology that when your alarm goes, get out of bed. Like, and people are going to be like, well, what else would you do when your alarm goes? I'll tell you what, 90% of you snooze the bloody alarm. Yeah. Roll over, cuddle back in and fall asleep, which brings me on to my question for you today, Ross. Why is a snooze 9 minutes?
No idea.
What kind of psychopath came up with 9? Like, I can't get my head around the mindset of somebody, the cruelty of somebody who would choose 9, but not, I just can't understand it. So
I don't snooze, so I it's not even a thing for me. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, people literally have, I kid you not, I've had clients show me this. They literally have like on their screen, if they've got a training session in the morning, wake up, oh no, already too late. Coach Ross is going to be really, really angry. And they literally get this line. I'm like, why do you even have those set in the first place? Get that shit off and just get out of bed.
So that's the first lesson from me. The first battle is the alarm, and your choice is binary as per there. So we've got some good circular narrative here. So going right back to the identity thing is binary. It's this guy on your right shoulder or that new guy on your left shoulder who's just come out of nowhere to win the race. He's like, get out of bed, mate. And I've got one alarm and that's it. Like, there isn't a fail-safe. But I've kind of conditioned myself through many years of doing it that I wake before my alarm now anyway. But it's the first battle in terms of, it's the first mental battle in terms of, it's the first opportunity you have to decide between two things. Number one, getting up and chasing what you're after, be that, like cheesy as it might sound, career goals, financial goals, family goals, physique goals, it doesn't matter. It's all waiting for you on the other side of an alarm. The other side of that coin is rolling over and hitting snooze, and literally all that exists there is your dreams, but in cinematic form in your head. you can watch them or you can go and get them. You tell me. And I say that to my clients, like, it sounds cheesy, but it's literally true in this instance. So one alarm, get up and get at it. And it's just like the absolute lowest hanging fruit when it comes to just like mental toughness or fortitude, or just like having control of, like, it's your brain will always want to opt for that easy option. It will always want to opt for comfort. We've evolved to want comfort. But in actual fact, as we know, on the other side of discomfort lies growth and improvement. So like if you're on a hack squat and you've got no weight on it, and let's say it's just not the Watson one, because it doesn't matter what you do with the Watson one, it feels like your soul is going to leave your body. But if you're on any other hack squat, I mean, you can move it around, it's not doing you any harm, there is no discomfort, thus there will be no adaptation. But if you load that guy up and you stick bands on it and all the rest of it, that's another discussion. And there's a shed load of discomfort, your body will adapt. Yes, we've got basic adaptation principles. The same thing applies. Getting out of bed is uncomfortable. People don't want to do it. It's just like that, like, easiest way to train your brain. So once we get the guys up, like, if they can win that first battle, and I get them to share it with the hashtag win the first battle on social media, screenshot, even if it's just a black screen like I do, and the swords, crossing swords emoji has become something of the emblem for it. And people have started sharing it, and I've got people from all around the world tagging me in this. They're out getting at it. And I want to take this opportunity, because this is the first time I've been on any form of public sort of appearance in terms of, since I've come to this realization. Win the first battle, although it is about getting up on your first alarm, it was never intended and will never intended to be who can get up earliest dick swinging competition, which is what it's turned into. Like, oh, I'm up at 3:15. It's like, yeah, you're gonna be fucked mid-afternoon, bro. Like, it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, like, congratulations on having a terrible day. Like, it's irrelevant. Like, sure, like, well done. Like, I don't get it, and it's not turned into that, but I can see that potentially it's got potential to go that way. I get up at 5. That's kind of my time. But for the sake of using a public soapbox, I go to bed at 8.
Yeah.
Like, Sarah hates it, but
all contextual.
Yeah, all contextual. So you don't see that because you choose not to see that, or because, I mean, I post it regularly so people know. But I think a lot of people are too busy getting caught up in that. All right, so he's up early, I'm just going to get up early. They don't go to bed in early. Like, a good morning starts with a good night's sleep, right? So that's a very key part of this process. But yeah, if we can train you to just get up on your first alarm and just choose discomfort, choose chasing your goals, choose getting at it. My guys are absolute warriors, mate. They're like, it takes a bit. People, when they first watch that training, I think week 1, they're like, fuck, like, I've just signed up to a guy that's actually going to make me do the work. And they have this moment of like, why? Because this old identity, he's like, hey dude, this is shit, leave, abandon ship. This is not, we're not about this life. Like, snooze and eat Doritos. Whereas this other guy's like, nah, listen to Matt, get up early, get at it. And I think that in its own right has become bigger than I could anticipate. So yeah, there's stickers available via the link in my bio now for free.
Yeah, harmless plug, as you do. But yeah, it's funny. Everyone's so individual. Like, I am, I like being up early. Not necessarily 5 a.m. early, but I do get up at 5 a.m. most days just because I have clients at 6. But
yeah, for sure.
Comfortable bedtime is our comfortable wake up time is like 5:45, 6. Like, that's the time I feel good getting up. My wife, on the other hand, she likes getting up at 8 a.m. If she gets up before 8 a.m., like you said, doesn't matter when she goes to bed or when she, she could be in bed at 8 p.m. and wake up at 6. She still doesn't feel great. She's just, her body clock is really well built for a later bedtime and a later wake up, and that's just the way it is. But like you said, I think there's a second component to this, is everyone's got to find what works for them. But then it's okay, now you're out of bed, so you've done that part. But what's the next part? And I noticed that one thing that you do, and I know this is something Jamie Alderton potentially does as well, I think I've seen him do,
I know where this is going. Yeah.
Is the getting out and jumping in the sea, getting out and getting doing something. I know this comes from a lot of the Wim Hof type stuff, where it's like, right, well, and I know that what was it, the book from the guys that on it, that Marcus,
Aubrey Marcus.
I've read that. That book is this idea of getting up and doing something that's relatively challenging or uncomfortable to start with, or whether that's getting in a cold shower, whether that's getting outside and quickly doing just some burpees or whatever, or whether it's going out and spending 10 minutes getting mobile or those sort of things. Just this idea of getting out and not And I think we're living in a time now where a lot of people, okay, even if they don't press snooze, one thing, and this has taken a lot for me to get away from, and I still battle with it every now and then, is, okay, let's just check notifications, let's just check messages, let's just check emails. And that's still not getting out of bed. It's like pressing the snooze.
I knew from your body language where that was going. That's why I started smiling. I can't even see your hands, but I knew what you were about to say.
Exactly. Because you just see me starting to, the shoulder lift and they're looking down to and it's just like, it's not any better, because instead of now lying down the background and closing your eyes, you're actually now staring at a screen and flicking and flicking. And so that's
100%.
Just tell people a bit about your kind of morning routine, like what that does for you, that kind of getting out, getting that cold suit on and just diving into the water.
So 100%. I think to touch on what you said about the difference between you and Mal, the same is absolutely the same with Sarah and I. Like, so my son Nixon calls Sarah, my fiance, the morning troll, which I think is fairly accurate. Like, if you get Sarah up at 6, we'll betide you, mate. Like, not only is she grumpy, but she just can't human. Like, we'll just bash around, slamming into stuff. And ultimately, as you know and I know, but potentially the listeners don't, that's largely driven by chronotype. So chronotype being whether or not you are a morning lark or an evening owl. It depends. It could be somewhere in between, I suppose. And I think in my opinion, it's largely genetic. I don't think it's something that, I think you can change it a bit, but I think if you've always been an evening person, trying to change it to being up at 4 or 5 is probably, you're barking up the wrong tree. Yeah. I'm a morning person, always have been my whole life. So yeah, please don't feel like there's something wrong with you. You're not broken if you can't get up at 5. Even if you do go to bed, if you get up at 5 and it's like your head is on upside down, give it a bit, like give it a couple of weeks, and if it's still not working, just push it back. Like, your first battle could be 6 a.m. Your first battle could be 7 a.m. The time is completely irrelevant. It's contextual. It's the act of waking on the first alarm and choosing to let that alarm just like, right, feet on the carpet, up we get, let's get out. So that's the battle. Yeah. So what does the morning routine look like? Like, it's fairly structured. And again, that's training number 2 for clients that follows directly after that, which is a framework training. So they actually follow along with a worksheet and fill it all out. So by the end of watching the video, they actually have their own tangible morning routine, which is called the M-cubed formula. So it's all like, it's super straightforward. So we look at movement, mental growth, and mental clarity. It's that straightforward. They're the 3 M's. How mine specifically looks: I wake, I go straight downstairs, and I neck like a full protein shaker of water. So 700 ml. Like, I've trained myself to that. I'm like a camel now. Like, it didn't used to be like that. I was like pissing like a pregnant diabetic before that. So yeah, 700 ml straight down with my greens and my electrolytes. That's just my choice. Please don't feel like you have to copy that. And then I will immediately meditate. So I've got, I don't know if you've seen them, the human charger. You will have read it if you've read Aubrey's book. Yeah. So it's like blue light that goes into your lugs, rather than, obviously, because in Scotland, there's about 62 seconds of daylight every day, along with our 24-hour summer that we have. So I always put blue light in my ears. So I put that on and I sit and meditate in the kitchen straight after my water. 10 minutes every day. Like, it's a non-negotiable. It happens, and like, end of. After that, ideally, I'll go out and it depends. My preference is to go straight to the sea. So that's me. It's only 50 minutes since waking. Throw on a hoodie and preferably some shorts. Like, it's not just a hoodie, that would be weird. Straight down to the sea. You will be arrested if you just wear a hoodie to the sea in any country, if you're listening. So please don't go to the beach with your wang out. It's frowned upon. So yeah, just go straight up to the sea, which is, I'm very fortunate, incredibly grateful that we only live like 10 minutes from like an epic beach. Literally sit there, maybe listen to a podcast, chill for a bit, get in the sea. I used to wear a wetsuit because I was just like trying to acclimatize myself to Scotland. Is like the coolest place on earth, as you know. So it's like, when you go in the sea, the water isn't pleasant. And I now just, I've got to the point where it's just like, right, swim shorts on, just run straight in and get at it. And I literally just float around in the sea and watch the sun come up. Because it's something I absolutely do not want to do. Like, you'd have to be out your mind to want to go into the North Sea at 5:30. It's not comfortable, but that's the point. And I make a point of every single day of my life, ideally, how many times can I get uncomfortable? How uncomfortable can I make myself? Because that's where I know there'll be growth. Like, when people started asking me to be on podcasts, I was like, oh, what? Like, I don't know what to talk about. Why do you want to speak to me? But then I was like, you're uncomfortable with it, do it. And now there's like, I'm on plenty and I thrive on it. So go and jump in the sea. And I cannot describe, I said to you off air, I cannot for the life of me put words to what it will do for your brain to just lie in the sea, no matter where you are in the world, and watch the sun come up. There's no one else up. You're just lying, floating around in the sea, chilling out. No mobile phone, just watching the world do its thing. Like, you try not being grateful for the life that you've got when you do that. And that's gratitude's a big one for clients, but it's probably a conversation for another day. And I think that brings me nicely to the most important part of the whole morning routine. From wake until such times I start being the muscle mindset coach, because I'm still not at that point. My mobile phone, I have it, but I use it for no online capacity. I'm not allowed to search the internet. I don't check my messages, because what people do is, you'll be like, you swipe down on the top when you're in bed and just look at all your notifications. So you just go to notification center. The only thing I'm allowed to look at is my Aura Ring app. So I open Aura. That's like my one vice. But everything else, no messages, nothing, because I'm very careful not to. I don't let any outside noise come in. I control what's coming into my mind in the morning. So when I come back from the sea, cup of coffee, and then pick up a book, grab 20 minutes of studying, pick up my diary, journal my day, what's looking like, who am I speaking to today? I'm speaking to Ross, whatever else. Make sure you've all got a slot in my diary. And then jump in the shower and put my muscle mindset coach hat on.
And it's time to go to work at that point.
It's time to get at it, yeah, for sure. So I think it's very important that I use that shower as like a extrinsic, no longer Matt, like Clark Kent Superman vibe. Yeah. Like, it's just, I treat them as two separate entities, so that I protect my own sanity, because as you'll know as a coach, it's very easy to just pour your your entire life, into coaching. So yeah, the whole morning is about, again, circular narrative. Well done, mate, you're nailing this one. If you look after your own charges, I look after my own charges. So that first morning, that first hour, maybe two, depending on which day of the week it is, that's all about filling up Matt and his battery and his cup, so that I am able to be the muscle mindset coach for everyone else. So I can honestly say, without any hesitation, that first hour of my day is the best. I can't even put words to it. I love it beyond words. Like, it makes me the happiest guy. Like, cup of coffee, the beach, sunrise, book, some studying, meditation, happy body, right? Let's get at it. And I'm like, I can go into, most people arrive at 9 o'clock at their desk, grumpy, stressed, rushed, harassed, fed up, moody. I mean, I could keep going. I won't. You get the picture.
Yeah.
But if I challenge people to be like, get up that bit earlier, win the battle, then they arrive at work on all the opposite of that. Yeah. They're ready to rumble. They're fulfilled. They're charged. And I used to arrive at work, because I used to do a lot of this before a desk job. People were like, "You're a psychopath, mate. Like, you've been in the sea this morning." And you're like, "Yeah." And see how I've not gone straight to the coffee machine? There's a reason for that. The reason that you are literally like holding the two barrels to hold your pens open at your desk, and it's 10 a.m. Sort yourself out. So I think there's a lot to be said for, you don't have to be a coach to benefit from this stuff.
No, 100%. I think the key thing I kind of take from that, from a very simplistic standpoint, is, like you said, most people are starting their day or arriving at work or whatever it is they do, and right from the get-go, it's pouring out of that bucket into everyone else's bucket. Whereas, like at the start of your day, you've poured right into the mat bucket right from the get-go, and plentiful as well. And it's then you turn up to the rest of the day like, well, I've already given myself so much self-love, self-care, gratitude, all those things, that now that I go to serve other people, I'm in a really freaking good headspace, physiological space, and all that stuff. And I think that's probably a big lesson people can take away, is that if you are someone who's not taking any time at all to pour back into yourself, then there's only so long that's going to last. And eventually that bucket's going to become a leaky bucket, and then it's going to be too late to pour things back in at some point.
100%. I definitely had a kind of come into Jesus moment when I realized in my old corporate life that I was potentially, or not potentially, categorically quite grumpy, just like quite stereotypically Scottish, I think. And perpetually like, this is shit, that's shit, that was average, moan. You know, people, just like Scottish people are a bit like that. I'm sure people around the world are like that, but we're often categorized for it.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I'm like, I don't want people to associate me with that. Like, I don't want, like, oh, he's a real grumpy git. Do you know what I mean? Like, people don't want to be around that. I don't want to be around that type of person. They're leeches. So I made a conscious choice to go and pursue that. That was kind of my like, right, hold on a minute. I need to do something for me, for everyone else. So yeah, it doesn't matter what you do, who you are, whether you live by the sea is completely bloody irrelevant. Go for a walk with a podcast that you really, really enjoy listening to, or put the best playlist on ever, or listen to nothing other than just like, if you live somewhere quiet, go walk in nature.
Yeah.
Like, do your thing, find your jam. It doesn't have to be the sea. You don't have to be like mentally unhinged and want to get in the North Sea. You can do your thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I think there's a big trend towards a lot of people looking for like, what's the secret? What's the secret morning routine? And people look up to like Tony Robbins or their kind of, favorite inspirational person. They're kind of like, what's the morning routine? Well, I need to emulate that. And I really like something that Dr. Jordan Shallow said, which he's like, you know what? He's like, I don't really believe in meditating. I don't really believe in this. He was just like, you know what? Do you know what my morning routine is? Get out of bed and go straight to work. Go after it. And I kind of like that because he was just, I don't have anything special. Yeah, sure, I might, drink my greens powder in the morning and da-da-da. They might have certain things consistent, but I think people are looking for almost like you said, that kind of flashy, right? If I just do this, then that's going to solve all of my problems. And for me, right, people have an idea of what my morning routine looks like. I get up, I go and mix my morning powder with like greens and, creatine and X, Y, Z. There's other things there. And, my stuff's already been packed on the night before. And it's a very simple morning routine. I make it as efficient as I can. I do my morning stuff like blood glucose, heart rate, and I note that down. And I just literally try and take 5 minutes, not to actually do much, just to actually sit, take a small sip of the powder before I leave the house, because otherwise I'm probably not drinking it until I get in the gym. And by that time, I'm an hour awake, not actually had anything in my mouth. And then for me, like just that sitting in the car, and often I actually don't listen to anything. Like a lot of people would use that as a time to listen to a podcast or whatever else. I actually like sometimes just sitting in the car with no music on, no noise, and just let my head just go and do its thing. Like, and that 15 minutes drive, it's just pure silence apart from the noise of the car on the road, is brilliant. And then for me, I like the fact that I have clients scheduled early, because I go in and my focus is purely then, right, delivering my coaching job. However, we spoke off air, like when I get to a point where I'm maybe no longer coaching people in person, it's okay for that then to switch. And I probably would look towards something like what you're doing. I'd probably take that time back for myself eventually. I think people give themselves a hard time. There are going to be times in your career where you maybe have to just put in a bit more graft. You might have to sacrifice that perfect morning or evening routine, but hopefully the goal is going to be at some stage to get to a point where, like Matt is, where, right, now that I've set up my day exactly as I want it, because I earned the right to get to this point in the first place, which is a key point as well, now I can live it to the way I want to live it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even when I need to put the graft in my morning routine, it's a non-negotiable. It's not a part of my day. I look at my diary and think, I could just work a bit there. I don't consider it. I'd rather work a Saturday mid-morning.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is I work 4 days a week as it is. So, I mean, I shouldn't be complaining. But I think you're right. The morning routine thing, it's not an absolute, but people want absolutes. Again, to link back to what we were saying, people want absolutes, like just copy this and all your wildest dreams will come true. They probably won't, sorry to burst that bubble, but the reality is there's nothing wrong with, like, do you know what I mean? Suck it and see what works for you, experiment. And that's why I teach 90% of what I teach the clients in frameworks rather than absolutes. So when we're going over the M-cubed formula, which is the framework for their morning routine, so the high performance morning upgrades, an overview on my views on mornings, which is where when the first battle was kind of born. But then we move on to the M-cubed formula, whereby it's like, right, let's build this now. What does this look like for you? If I give broad brush categories, high level categories, where we say movement, mental clarity, mental growth, that could be anything, mate. Like that I'm not, here's what I do, but here's like 10 suggestions for each of those categories. Drag and drop one, put it in the box, trial it. How does it work? And this is where the importance comes in self-reflection and review. So yeah, I think frameworks is where, like, if people listen to this, want to try what I'm doing, by all means, I actively encourage you to try it. But don't be disheartened if it just didn't work for you. If you go with those three categories, if I could leave the listeners with nothing else, like that would be the thing. M-cubed formula: movement, mental clarity, mental growth. Think about what they mean to you, plug and play them, spend 20 minutes doing each of them. That's an hour. Do it before work every day for a week. See how you feel. Do it for a month. Tell me you're not backflipping into the office.
I'm definitely feeling a ridiculously noticeable change in how you are and how you turn up for everyone else, right?
For sure, 100%.
Brilliant. So I think that's a fantastic way to finish the formal part of the podcast and move into the really fun part, the quick fire round, which I know Matt is just like ready to rock and roll with.
I'm ready, mate. Hit me.
Bring it on. Sweet or savoury?
Savoury. No consideration.
What's that?
No consideration there whatsoever. Savoury 10 times out of 10.
There you go. It's usually, people are quite firm on it. Usually most people that have came on the podcast are really like, there's no hesitation at either one or the other, and that's it. No. Which is good. Favourite exercise currently, if you had to have one?
Favourite exercise currently? Genuinely, aerobic exercise right now. Absolutely love it. Just getting on the bike and sweating my eyeballs out on the Concept 2 bike erg.
Very nice, very nice. What about your least favourite?
Least favourite exercise? Barbell front squat. Absolutely hate it.
Why do you hate it?
I have, like, my wrists are about as mobile as a brick, for starters. So then you end up having to use straps. And I absolutely hate just everything about the profile of that exercise. I don't know if it's my femur length. I don't know if I've just like, I oppose it wholeheartedly as me as an individual. I still program it like a sadist, but I back squat all day long.
There you go. So front squat as a profiler, just like that is a terrible exercise. I'm never doing that again.
I hate it, mate. Absolutely hate it.
Oh, it's funny though, but it's funny how mobility is the big limiter. Like I've got, for whatever reason, really mobile shoulders, and so I'm literally like full grip and elbows like there, and that comes from maybe the CrossFit background, the Olympic lifting background.
Yeah.
But yeah, front squats. It's the first time a squats came up, which is interesting. But I could understand why.
Oh really? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I bore it, mate. Like, I would literally just leave the gym if it came up in my program. Like, I'm done. This session is over.
Yeah, a lot of people, when you talk to them about front squats, they're just kind of like, well, you know, it's on the front, which is not comfortable. And then when you start to get really tired, it sucks your oxygen out of you because you can't freaking breathe. And it's just not a very nice exercise, to be fair. So it's a fairly good choice, I think. What's an interesting fact that most people won't know about you?
I don't even have a quick fire answer for this one, mate. An interesting fact that most people won't know about me. You know, here's one. People genuinely don't know this. Everyone assumes the opposite. I'm 5'8". Everyone assumes I'm like 6'2", and I started to break it to you. I got off my bar stool earlier on to a mentoring client. I was speaking to him, was sat on a bar stool, and he was like, "You just got smaller when you got off a chair." I'm like, I was on a bar stool, to be fair, mate. You know, you stand up, obviously you inherently get taller. I got smaller. I'm like, he's like, "How tall are you?" It's like 5'8" with like my Cuban heels on. And he's like, "This is the most disappointed I felt in months." Like, I genuinely, you know, when you have this picture of someone in your head, he was like, "I thought you were at least 6 foot." But yeah, I'm like the same height as your average 5-year-old girl. So yeah, 5'8".
I mean, in fairness, I'm only 5'9", so it's funny. Coach Cassim Hansen was like, you know, he's 5'8" as well, and he was like, if you go into this, he's like, the way he describes it, if you go into the store, you don't feel that bad. But when you're around people, like he was obviously training a lot of athletes at one point who are all like, and you know what America's like as well, freaking tons of like 6
freaks, yeah,
mutants, and he's just like, you develop a small man complex super quick. But it's funny,
100%.
The exact same thing. A lot of people probably see, because he's quite a thick guy, and a lot of people think, oh, he's quite a big guy, but he's like, no, I'm a hobbit. And I was like, well, I think lots of guys are kind of hobbits in fairness.
Other people, I think, have small man syndrome on my behalf more than I have it. Like, yeah. I'm an internal optimist. Like, I'm also like pragmatist, but I like to see the glass half full. And never in my life has it been something I've even really, like, it's never caused me any, like, the only time it's ever a bit of a pain in the tits is when you're at a gig and there's some rude bastard that's 6'6" decides to stand directly in front of me. Right, thanks very much. But in my experience, like air travel, all these other things, it makes my life significantly easier. But then, like, number of people that be like, "Oh, like, you're really short," or, you know, "I bet you got small man syndrome." I'm like, no, you seem to have it on my behalf. Thank you very much for your concern. But yeah, it's never ever presented any problem to me in life at all. Like, maybe the top shelf in Tesco can be a bit of a stretch sometimes, but that's fine.
But you know what? I'm resourceful. I can climb the shelf. I can jump. I can make it work.
That's it, mate. 100%. Or just ask a really tall woman to help me.
There you go. So you don't feel inferior in any way whatsoever.
That's it. 100%.
I am 5'8" and living my best life. Thank you very much. There you go. So if you could only travel one place post-COVID, where would you go and why?
To the beach that I go to in the morning, and that's it. I wouldn't even go any further afield. Like I am that content. Sarah's sick of hearing it. She literally is sick to the back teeth of me extolling the virtues of one specific beach. She's just like, all right, I get it. I tell her daily it's like my spiritual home. Like I don't even need to go abroad. I would love to go abroad, but if I had to pick one, that beach for life, I'd live there on that beach.
Nice.
Not actually on the beach. Like I'd have a house near the beach for clarity. I don't want to be homeless.
It's fair. It's fair. You know, and hopefully the business keeps going from strength to strength. You don't have to.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I have no doubt that will, though. In fairness, people who have shaped your career the most. I have an idea.
Well, let's name him already because he's become up. Luke Lehman, undoubtedly. Early doors, Phil Lerny helped a lot, and then laterally, Phil Graham's been a massive influence in my sort of professional development, if you will. In terms of who's really stretched my brain, Luke's like front and center with that, buddy. I just can't get past it. And then one last person I'm going to choose for then is Michael Golden of Integra. So RTS, like you know the drill. Like never have I felt like talking about feeling inferior. Fuck height. Spend a day with Michael Golden. I mean, he's 5'7" or something anyway. But like, spend a day with Michael Golden and try not to have everything you know absolutely obliterated into 1,000 pieces and feel like literally I know nothing. I have never felt so stupid in my whole life than spending the weekend with Michael Golden doing RTS.
Brilliant. Do you know what's funny? Like, I think a lot of people assume that I've done RTS because of the way I kind of communicate and stuff, but I've actually done any direct RTS courses or anything like that. I've kind of learned everything I've done. I've always like seek the people who have done RTS and ask them like, what was your interpretation of it? Like ask Cassim about it because he was obviously very early on with Tom Purvis, like RTS and everything else. And you actually ask someone like him and he's like, I don't agree with everything. I appreciate everything I got from the system, but I have my own views on that now. And that's what I find interesting. I know people like James at the Muscle Mentors are quite hardcore RTS kind of theory. I find it interesting getting around people. I mean, I'd love to spend time with Michael purely for that point of view. It's not necessarily about the system. It's the way they think.
It's wealth of knowledge. Like absolutely gobsmacking how intelligent he is. And that's what I think that in its own right is the key. Like, I think it's that Bruce Lee quote, excuse me, it's that Bruce Lee quote that the muscle nerds constantly have in their slides, which is adapt what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. So I'm not saying you have to agree with everything Phil Lerny says or Luke Lehman says. I'm actively encouraging you to disagree with some of it and actually, again, form your own identity and your own integrity as a coach. I think like when you were speaking there, I realized I neglected to mention someone that had absolutely paramount and continues to have a paramount impact as a mate is Callum. Like Callum Raystrick, I just like, he continues to blow the top off my head when I try and speak to him about something. I'm like, fuck, I thought I understood this, but now I feel like I know nothing about it. And that's how I like to leave conversations with people I'm, working with. But Callum's someone that's become a very, very close mate and massively shaped my career. So those five are like the, top dogs for me.
Yeah, and it's funny, like I actually knew of Cal a long time ago where Dan Smith, who I also know you know quite well as well, he's actually someone
legend, yeah.
You know really well as well, because I think Danny, who he was with at the time, and Mal competed in the same WFF show, and they got to know each other then, and then we've seen Dan and Danny over here a couple of times in Dubai, and I think Dan is probably one of the most understated, but probably one of the best coaches I know as far as what he does. It's incredible.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Guy's an absolute legend, and he's got an absolute wealth of knowledge. And I actually have more respect for him because he operates in the shadows. Like you try finding some. Tell me, if you don't know who Dan Smith is, try and find something out about Dan Smith. You won't know anything. The guy's an absolute splinter cell, and I've got a lot of time for that. Like, I really, really, really like Dan. And I think my respect is not only born out of, obviously he's a hugely accomplished and hugely capable coach, but he doesn't do it for social kudos like everyone else. And I think, like, let's be honest, mate, I'm going to do this and you can tell me if you want to remove yourself. I'm going to throw myself and you on the bonfire for that. Like, we're both present on social media, which means that a degree of what we're doing is done to be able to showcase to other people. Dan does not do it for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that we solely do that, but we are guilty of it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think Dan's just such a ledge, because it's just like, you just like out of nowhere just spits out a before and after, and you're like, I didn't even know you were coaching this guy, but now he looks like fucking Superman. So yeah, legend.
100%.
Good shout that.
Yeah, 100%. And so like with Cal, I actually learned about Cal back then when he was at M10, and then knew of him, and eventually reached out. And yeah, when, like you say, when you get asked Cal a question, you just have to be ready for the answer, because it's probably way beyond what you were expected to get.
Just regret asking the question immediately. You know what, mate? Next time I'll just keep it to myself.
But both Dan and Cal are guys that are just like you said, they just this work in the shadows mindset and just get on with it. It's a huge amount of respect, and I agree. Like I think you feel a pressure to be kind of constantly ever present on social media, but I think those guys are just proof of the pudding. And I think Cal's obviously, he was more in the shadows initially, but you can also, it's like, how do you play the game? Just Dan chooses not to play the game that way. He created his own rules. That's why he's authentic.
Yeah, and I think he's happier for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just like, he doesn't have that stress. Like, I remember sitting at Muscle Nerds, Christ, how many times have we mentioned it? Muscle Nerds foundations course with Dan. And him and I sat together, and we were, I'm busy posting up stories and making sure my Instagram's up to date, and like making sure everyone knows I'm there, doing a post at lunchtime, and Dan's just enjoying his day. I'm like, who's the idiot here? Like me, I'm stuck to my bloody mobile phone. He's just sitting out in the sunshine at lunchtime, and I'm frantically bashing away trying to get a post done in the 20-minute break that we've got.
Yeah, food for thought, isn't it? Food for thought indeed.
For sure, mate. For sure.
If you were to be stuck on a desert island and you could only take 3 items, what would it be? What would they be?
I'm going to get in trouble for ordering them this way, but I'm going to, she might not listen, so we're all good. The dog is coming first. 100%. Woody is coming. I can't not take my son. I feel like, so there we go, right? I'm going there, and in no specific order. Let's caveat it. The dog, my son, Sarah. I find myself gravitating away from material stuff. I put a post up about that the other day. The older I get, the less stuff I want, and the more detached from the belief system and the paradigm of, if I buy this thing, it will make me happy, I become. So like I have, like, and I think Dan's a good example of that as well, to give him credit. Like, I just feel like I used to find myself buying trainers, or getting tattoos, or buying clothes, or you name it, just material crap. I can feel like my interpersonal relationships, and most importantly, my relationship with myself, is far healthier for finding happiness in day-to-day stuff. So as long as there's a good beach on that desert island, those 3, we're golden. We'll make the rest work.
Exactly. There you go. That was a pretty good answers. And to be honest, I can resonate with that a lot, because I think if there was one thing I could say, especially in a place like Dubai where everyone wants to be super flashy all the time, I'm honestly one of the most unflashy people you'll ever meet. I don't really want anything. Like, I don't lust after watches or cars, or I'll be honest.
They're the things that come to mind, aren't they? They are the 2 things, like the first things that come to mind is watches and cars. Is like, and I find myself really perturbed when I see somebody posting on social media, and it's not for me to judge, and I shouldn't judge, and I try my best not to.
Yeah.
But I find myself, like, they obviously want to, and they're entitled to, and that's what makes the world go round, is that we're all individuals. You'll not catch me doing it, because if I do buy myself something, there are certain objects in my life that I do covet, and I'm sure you're the same. Because doesn't mean I'm not a material person to the point where I'm going to go like Wim Hof and live in a cave. Like, I'm speaking to you on AirPod Pros. I've got an iPhone 11 Pro there, and I'm speaking to you on a MacBook Pro. Here's Matt. I'm not a material guy. I am to some extent, but within reason, and they're all business things. But for instance, like, there is a specific car. It's not an expensive car. Like, I'll pick one up for, I'm not even going to mention what it is, 15 grand tops, probably. That is like my absolute life goal. And it's not that I can't afford it. It's just not the right time to spend the money on that just now. But when I buy it, it will be momentous, and it'll be something that I celebrate privately to myself and with Sarah. And I have friends who know me well enough, and that's the key. People that know me well enough will know how that is a significant milestone in my life. I don't need to put up a boomerang on social media to show everyone, because it's not for everyone else. I don't need the verification of everyone else's double taps.
Yeah, I
You
like
know?
even more, Matt, because funny, I don't think anyone even knows what type of car I drive, and it was like you said, it was when I got it, it was a personal thing. It was like when I was a young guy growing up in Scotland, and you know, won't go into my backstory, but let's just say money wasn't necessarily plentiful, and you know, would I ever have thought that I'd be in a position where I could say, you know what, I actually can be in a position to buy myself a nice car, for example. And obviously you can, in Dubai, it's easier to get those slightly nicer cars than it is because it's cheap to run. The petrol's really cheap here. And so I end up like, if you'd ever told me I'd drive like a BMW M Sport car, I'd have just said, no way, that's not me, that's not who I am. I don't even like it. And to be honest, I couldn't tell you the first thing about cars. People tell me more about my car than I can tell them because I honestly don't care. Like I see a car as A to B, but it was more everything it took and all the hard work that went into. Well, you know what? I'm in a position where I can do that. I didn't post it on social media. I didn't even put it on a story. It was just like, you know what? It's nice that I got to a point where I could do that for myself and for my wife. But I don't need to share.
100%.
It's a personal win.
No,
that's it.
I agree with that, and it's a personal win, and that's the big one. Is that like, and mine isn't even like a fancy car. Like let's just throw out there, like my whole life, not just my adult life, as a child, like I have this love affair with Land Rover, like absolute love affair. Like I don't know what it is. See, just an old Defender doesn't even have to be all singing or dancing because I will do it up myself. Because the Defenders are like they're like big boy Lego. Let's be real. So like I'll buy the bits and I'll do it up myself. But I just want a humble Defender. It drives like a bag of shit. It drives like a tractor. It's uncomfortable. But you know what? It's like I've said to myself, I will use it as a milestone, and it's going to cost me £15,000. I mean, what's that in the car market? It's a drop of the ocean, isn't it? It's not about financial. Ooh, look what I bought! Like, here's my Lambo kind of thing. It does nothing for me. In fact, it does do something for me. It pushes me the opposite. I want to run away from that ideology. Like, it makes me feel really uncomfortable when people do it, because it's very easy to get on a soapbox and be like, oh, there's something missing in your life. I don't want to get on that soapbox because it's easy to get, you know what I mean? That voice is always when I'm joking. But to some extent, I don't seek the validity or the verification from other people's likes. Like I'm honestly, I feel like it's a good place, but presumably you've not got too many more questions, if any. I feel like I am at this point in my life the happiest and at the most base level that I've ever been in my life with the stuff that I have, but I have the least stuff I've ever had.
Yep.
What does that mean? I don't know. You can, I mean, be your own philosopher, but
yeah, the things that matter the most, which are the relationships you nurture, the people you spend the most time with, and just feeling comfortable in your own skin. Like I think for me, like the way I describe it to people is there's nothing more satisfying. Like if you had to come to me today and say, you know what, Ross, you're a piece of shit. You're terrible at your job, and I hope you die. I'd just be like, all right, cool. Like I'm so comfortable with who I am that it's kind of like, well, I'll just be around the people who appreciate me for who I am. And I think that's such a, because a lot of people, like you said, a lot of the clients we coach, they don't necessarily have that level of, and that's definitely, I'm not saying that to come across as like cocky or kind of,
no, I know.
It's more just this, there's something so peaceful about being so content. I can't describe it beyond that.
No, 100%. I'm not in any way affected by that kind of person either. Like, yeah, thanks for your opinion. Duly noted. Close the door on your way back out, please. Like, next.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
I think, like you said, to your point about the Land Rover, like, yes, it's like you said, it's not flash whatever else, but I think for a lot of people, like, it's what it represents. It's what it represents to you. I think that's the key thing. Regardless of like the brand, the price tag, any of that nonsense, it's what that represented for you to achieve that thing.
Yeah, and it's been an achievable goal for a long, long time from a financial standpoint. Yeah. But it's more than a financial outlay. It's very hard to put words to this. Like it's Sarah knows it. There's one not far from us, and where we walk the dog, we walk past it, and it's goals. It's right up there. And I look at it, and he goes out early morning as well. The guy's an absolute legend. He takes his dog out at like 5 a.m. and I see him give him a wave every morning. Oh, this guy's living my best life. But like, it's very difficult. Anyone that knows me from my adult life will have heard about this bloody car. They're probably sick of hearing about the car. But it will signify, it will be to myself to congratulate myself for something. I don't know what. It'll be when I'm like, everyone else is taken care of. Everyone else has what they need. The family house is taken care of. Sarah's happy and comfortable in her car. Like the pensions are taken care of. The mortgage is taken care of. Now it's time.
Yeah. Like we talked about, big rocks first.
For sure, mate.
What is your happiest and proudest moment as a coach?
Happiest and proudest moment, probably like that first ever, like before and after, like that I got from somebody from like, I've never chased before and afters caveat from like let's just get a photograph and move on. So it's not like I'd rushed one through. It took me probably 3 to 4 years of coaching to get one that I was like the traditional before and after, where you can be like, people are like, what the fuck did you do to that person? How are they that like in that good shape? Do you know what I mean? Like jaws hit the floor. And yeah, I remember it well. And it was, you know, the one that I'm thinking of, I'm never going to name them because I don't ever want anyone else to feel like theirs was any less profound. I was actually on holiday, and the guy sent me, he had purposefully forgotten to send me progress photos for a few weeks. He hadn't, but he knew it was coming in hot, and he had forgotten. I've been ready to speak to him straight after this, and he was over a year ago, a lot longer than that, and he sent me this photograph, and he'd put together the before and after for me.
Wow.
And I was like, this is like Photoshop, mate. Like, you look absolutely incredible. To be fair, it was just out of sunbed, that helps. But yeah, I remember that, and I was just like, that was the first time, and there's probably quite a profound lesson in this. That was the first time, that was probably, well, it was multiple years into my coaching journey, where I felt like maybe I can do this job. And I still don't feel like I really know this job. But I was like, hold on. Maybe there's some like, some life in the old boy yet. Like I think that's being able to be humble like that and not just swaggering around like I know it all and I can get everyone in shape. Because I genuinely, I want to feel like the stupidest coach in the room. Like that's the people I want to surround myself with. And I feel like that it made me think like, oh, hold on. Maybe I can do this job pretty well, like to an elite level. And it gave me that little burst of self-confidence without ego.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot because even though I've been in this industry a while, body composition and the whole chasing the before and after photo thing, I was never into it. I actually did a lot of like performance stuff, rehab. I spent a bit of time in a clinic doing post-rehab stuff. I was always about like, I'll never do the before and after photo thing. And I'd say it's almost been the last year and a half I've started being like, right, I really like this area and I'd like to pursue it a bit more. And like you said, like when I got that first, the first like really like, wow, that's a serious result. I think even if you're a confident coach, it's like you said, you almost get a certain level of reassurance from, well, you know what, actually, this was an area that I didn't want to go in on because maybe you were still a bit doubtful of your ability because you hadn't had that yet. But then when you get it, all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I can do this. I can 100% do this. So I think for maybe any other coaches that listen to this, even if you look up to coaches at the moment who are currently looking like they crush it, they've all been through that exact process that they have to get to that point. Everyone thinks that, am I really cut out for this? Am I ever going to get to the point where I churn out those sort of results? We all, regardless of how confident we outwardly project, we all have that little bit of self-doubt until it actually...
Imposter syndrome. For sure, 100%. Let's put those coaches at ease because I still have it daily. Yeah, because I've consciously taken myself out of each pond and put myself into being the smallest fish in a pond every time I felt like I was growing. So now, like, I'm surrounded by Phil and Luke and all these people. I feel like completely and utterly inadequate around them, and that's how I like to feel. Because again, circling back, discomfort equals growth. I'm uncomfortable just now, really uncomfortable, because I'm like, do I really know what I'm talking about? Yes, but not in the context of these people. And I feel like one thing I would add to that for coaches listening is please don't fall into the trap. Nothing riles my feathers on Instagram more than I don't normally post before and afters, but the reason you don't post before and afters is because you don't have them, and that's not something you should be ashamed of.
Yeah.
But don't preface it with, I don't normally do this. You don't normally do this, but let's just not make that doesn't need fanfare. You don't normally do this because you've been grafting, you've been doing the hard yards. You've been working with people in the gym who probably aren't that committed, who need a huge amount of psychological help that you're not qualified to help them with yet. You've not walked the walk and you haven't been down that path. Run the hard yards and put the time in. And when you do get your first one, don't post it up with a caveat. Post it up with all the fanfare it deserves and be like, ta-da, like,
be proud of.
You know what? key, I think, is celebrate it from the client's win. It's not your win. You didn't win. The client won, and celebrate it by like the client is the hero. You're not the hero in every post you ever do. And like I will always have my like. It's not about me. Like it's about my clients. I think that's why a good coach come a Friday night is literally like a burst couch. Like I know by the end of tonight I'm going to be empty because I pour my heart and soul into making the clients the hero. So if you are posting it before and after, and if it is your first one, moreover, celebrate the client. Don't celebrate you, and don't post it with a caveat that you don't normally do it. Just be like, guys, I show the world how proud you are of that client, because I think that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point, because I think, yeah, it's one thing seeing the before and after photo, but the other thing we love to do as well is like, we kind of post like, what were your kind of struggles? Like, what was the challenges you were facing? And then let the client tell it in their own words, like, how do you feel now? How is life different now? What are your big wins and what's been your outcome? Like, forget the physical transformation. What is all the other stuff that's came from going through this process? And I think that as well is, because listen, we're bombarded with before and afters. Every coach is trying to get, like, at least as in body composition, wants to share what's the most significant, like, jaw-dropping one. But you know what? I'd almost rather see, like, I'm not to say mediocre, but like that's a great result. It's not a jaw-dropping, it's a great result. But look at the psychological shift that person's had. That's absolutely epic. That's
like a 1,000 times over. And I think, like, if you look on my social, you'll always see on my story at least, like, psychological wins from clients.
Yep.
You know, like when it's like, oh, Matt, you've changed X, Y, or Z for me in my life. And I feel like that stuff's the stuff that, like, if I was going to get like totally emotional about it, then it would be that stuff. I'm less married to the before and after. It's like literally, case in point, the oldest thing on my story right now is from a guy that says, diving right in, this is from his check-in. What a week. I feel like I'm living my best life, all because I've got my mornings back. I've shortened the runs to 20 minutes and allowing for a 10-minute dip in the sea, and man, I'm loving it. Such a good time for thinking and I suppose breathing. Not a soul bobbing around in the water, just awesome. I know I don't need to tell you this, but you have been my inspiration for all of this. I was even in the sea when it was heavy rain the other morning, had a bit of a giggle thinking to myself, what kind of mentalist does this? Me and you, that's who. And I'm like, this guy's shredded. Like, he looks like an absolute champion. But it doesn't excite me. It doesn't get me up nor down. I'm like, great, good for you. If that's what you want, then I can help you do that. But see, the fact that he's like, I'm living my best life, mate. I'm more stress resilient. I'm happier. I'm better with my kids. I'm better with my wife. I am far better at dealing with tricky situations at work. I sleep better. I can shit every day. All those things. That's the stuff that makes me get up and do my job in the morning.
That's the wins right there.
Yeah, well, all over me.
Yeah, big time. Completely agree. So we're almost there. I know we're probably 4 questions away. It's meant to be a quick fire round, but I do like the tangents as it went on. It's been really, really good. Who's one person that you'd like to interview or meet in person? It doesn't have to be industry specific.
Who's one person I'd like to meet in person? Wim Hof, 100%.
Oh, nice. Makes sense.
He's a mentalist. Like, I want to adopt him as like my dad. I say that all the time to my actual dad. I make sure he knows that. Like, I'd like to adopt Wim as my own father. But not because mine is failing, but just because Wim seems like an absolute champion.
Just might have. Sorry, Dad, you're just being parked for just a short time, and then I'll come back when my time with Wim is over.
I mean, there could be a tag team, like tag team. That's fair. Yeah.
Surrogate dad and real dad, different needs and all that.
That's it. Wim and Derek coming at you.
Brilliant. Favorite non-industry specific book?
Atomic Habits. Does that count? That's non-industry.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Definitely. Atomic Habits. There's not a human on this planet that shouldn't read that book.
Agreed.
Can I give 2?
Yeah, go for it.
This is probably more specifically for you as well, because as a Scotsman, you'll appreciate it on a next level. The book called, this is Muscle Mindset Coach Secrets right here. We got an exclusive here. It's called Unfuck Yourself by Gary John Bishop. Mate, like, it's like my soul has been put into the pages of a book. Like, if my subconscious wrote a book, I cannot speak volumes to how much that book connected with me, or I connected with it, probably. But they're the 2 books that every client reads.
Brilliant. I'll make sure I add those to the show notes so people can find them, because people always ask.
For sure.
what was that book again? It's like, if you just go to the end of the podcast, you'll find it. But here's the actual name of the book. Who should we have next on the podcast?
Have you had Callum on?
Yeah.
Fuck. Well, not Callum then. You can't have him twice. Well, you could have him twice. Who should you have next? Luke? I genuinely think Phil Graham would be interesting as well. Like, he's a very interesting bloke, Phil Graham. He's got an awful lot of incredibly wide knowledge. I mean, Luke goes without saying. Luke's going to be the absolute most entertaining. Like, I can't, like, I feel like I'm like virtually sucking him off on this podcast, but you know what I mean. Like, I feel like if you want bang for your buck, guys like an absolute hand grenade of comedy and knowledge gains. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, his podcasts are great. I listened to the one he did with Nick, Fitness Rebel. Nick,
yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it was good. There was just a part towards the end. I was just like, that's Luke. That's Luke Lehman in a nutshell.
Gold, mate. When he got asked on, I was listening to one the other day with Luke, and they said, you know, they did a quick fire round at the end, and it was hobby that people don't know about. And he's like, does chronic masturbating count? I'm like, this is my guy. Like, what a hero.
There's a great criteria for a hero: chronic masturbator. That's right there.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that speaks volumes. All this good work done on this podcast undone in one sentence. Fuck.
Brilliant. Phil, he's actually came up quite a few times, and yeah, I think what people say is exactly what he said. It's more that he's very. I find Phil a very good communicator. I think that's why I'd love to have him on, because he's very interesting to listen to. Communicates really well.
He'll challenge paradigms that you didn't know you had as well.
Mm.
He's a straight shooter. I think all the guys that I like are straight shooters. Like, again, maybe that's a Scottish thing. Like, Scottish people tend to, there's less beating around the bush, I would say. That's why I like Luke. That's why I like Phil. Like, they say what you see. Tell me what I need to know, not what I want to hear. They'll both do that. So there you go. There's two recommendations from me.
I will be reaching out for sure. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Instagram for sure. Instagram at The Muscle Mindset Coach.
Wonderful. And I'll put the link in the bio. And listen, guys, like, in terms of everything you need to know about Matt, all the things you want to find in terms of his business, free downloads, all that stuff. I checked this out earlier, as we do, our due diligence and all that. You click the link in his bio, you will find everything you need to know. But other than that, the last thing I can do is just please encourage everyone to come on to, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. If you listen to it on any other podcast platform, you won't be able to do that, but you can just keep on listening and tune in every week. We'll be getting more great guests like Matt onto the podcast in the future. And who knows, we might have Matt back on at a later date as well, if he'll come back on as well.
For sure. It would be a pleasure. Anytime, mate. You know the drill.
There we go. And other than that, Matt, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me, mate.